Do you like metal? Coffee? Burly bearded dudes talking about metal and coffee? Then this episode of Cult House is for you. But before I get into all of that, I need to get some shameless self promotion out of the way. If you go to Kickstarter right now, you can back issue 3 of Monkeys Fighting Robots the magazine. What is Monkeys Fighting Robots the magazine? It's an anthology of comics and articles about comics, and this next issue features a 6-page horror comic titled Unabridged Nightmare, written and lettered by me, and drawn by my good friend Mitchell McNaughton. Now while you're there, you can also add the first 2 issues of Monkeys Fighting Robots, which I helped to edit, to your pledge. These are very high quality magazines, there's a lot of good stuff in them. And if you also want to know why monkeys are fighting robots in the first place, you can grab Tales of Monkeys Fighting Robots by Jamie Jones and Matt Sardo while you're there. I've also been assured that Monkeys Fighting Robots founder Matt Sardo is going to throw in some extra goodies, like MFR koozies, for the backers. So check that out, and check out their website and podcast too. I've had the pleasure of doing stuff for both of those as well, including 2 interviews with an obscure little-known comic artist named Todd McFarlane. Anyways, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check out the link to the Kickstarter in the bio below. If you're listening on Spotify or another platform, just go to Kickstarter and search for Monkeys Fighting Robots. Now, back to Cult House.
The sky's not blue.
You need to understand that when the time comes, I'm going to be taking over.
Welcome back to the Cult House Podcast. I'm your host, Roger Riddell, and joining me today is drummer Mike Miczek from Chicago death metal mainstays Broken Hope, sludge purveyors The Atlas Moth, and the district manager of Chicago's Dark Matter Coffee. How you doing today, Mike?
Woo, doing good, Roger. Thanks for having me, yo.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to have to run through there.
Oh, God, yeah. The list gets longer. We like to joke that there's only like 3 drummers in the Chicago metal scene, and that incorporates about 75% of all the bands.
Yeah, I know there was a Brazzers joke in there at some point.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like you all are just always getting passed around between probably like a half a dozen bands at any given time. Like I know Gabe from Something Is Waiting is in like 3 other bands too.
Oh, God, yeah. And I just ran into him last week standing on the street. That's what, you're coming out of, we all rehearse in like the same general area. So you walk out at any given night and you're going to run into Gabe, or you're going to run into sometimes Gary, or maybe you'll see, it's hilarious. And it's like, well, what project are you working on this week? Are you covering for this guy? Or are you playing with these guys now? Like, sick. I had no idea that you had joined those 12 other bands.
Yeah, like I remember back in like 2010, 2011-ish, when things were really kicking off, like Charlie Fell was in 3 bands at one time too.
That sounds right. I don't know if it's a Chicago thing or a drummer thing, but shit, I'll take it.
It's a good drummer, and I feel like a good bassist is kind of hard to come by too.
Dude, totally. I'll take that. You can't throw a rock in the city without hitting somebody that's trying to be a lead guitarist or a vocalist.
Yeah, no one ever wants to make the jump to bass.
Shit, and here's the thing, like every time I talk to either a drummer, it's like, especially me, dude, I would love to play bass. And then you talk to a drummer and it's like, talk to a bass player and it's like, what else would you play? And it's like, I probably want to be a drummer. That makes sense. It's a rhythm section thing.
Yeah. And so you joined Broken Hope when they reformed like back in 2012.
Yeah.
And I had talked, I think the year before that, to Sean Glass when I was doing that oral history of Chicago metal for the AV Club.
Oh, nice.
And I think at that time he was doing the Dirge Within stuff.
Yeah.
But that was like right around the time that the metal scene had like kind of hit, I guess maybe it's like more recent peak in that city.
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. Wow, that's a throwback too, because literally when Sean was recording that Dirge Within record, that's kind of how I got to know him, because I was buddies with this cat named Don who owned a recording studio, and Don introduced me to Sean because they were death metal guys from back in the 90s. And he came in one day and he was like, man, who the fuck is this? And he was looking at all the patches on my jacket. He's like, Razor, you don't listen to fucking Razor. Like, what is a Sacrifice? You don't know what the fuck that is. And then we got in a room and we started jamming. I think we jammed some Trouble or something. And then like 6 months later, Don hit me up and he was like, yo, you need to talk to that Sean guy that you were hanging out with, because Broken Hope is reforming and they need a drummer. And you, being the fucking, 20-year-old, 40-year-old would be perfect for that. So it's crazy, because meeting Sean around that time is literally how I kind of wound up getting an audition with Broken Hope and getting to meet those guys.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts how just like rich the city's metal scene is. Like, I feel like it's just the history of it. It's underrated as one of those cities that was really influential. Just going back to like Master and Trouble, and I think like at one point Syndrome was kind of big up there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, I mean, fuck yeah. And even Macabre as well, dude. You're talking about like the solid foundations of like death and thrash metal really coming out of Chicago, and like being you can't like look at an old school photo, especially even after LG passed, and you look at all the old Entombed photos, and those cats are rocking Syndrome shirts. So like they knew what was up. They're kind of like the underdogs. Like, we helped start it, but yeah, you're right. Totally just like didn't get the recognition necessarily that it deserved. I don't know if it's a Midwest thing or what.
It's like there was so much going on when I was trying to like put together that history of it back in the day, that I inevitably ended up like either not being able to connect with bands, like things just didn't line up, or there were just people that for whatever reason just kind of got overlooked just because of the whole process. And I just remember people were really upset in the comment section on that like I overlooked their favorite band from the 80s. And it's like, dude, I tried to like get some of these people and their schedules just didn't line up.
Why didn't you talk about Demented Ted, man? What about Oppressor? What about Usurper? And granted, all these bands started fucking years before I was even born. I just wound up not having a life and spent most of middle school and high school sitting on like metal archives, trading with people in like Germany for these old bands that I'd never heard of, because it's not like you could go to Best Buy and get these CDs. Like, this shit was already like 15 years out of print by the time I was trying to get into it. So it's wild. I mean, it's a rich fucking history in this city. It's so solid.
Yeah, like Scott from Cyanide had like hooked me up with a handful of recordings from around that time, because like you were saying, so much of it was just hard to find.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's like, oh, the Cyanide catalog's getting re-released. Fucking Cardiac Arrest's albums are finally getting repressed and stuff. All these crazy like European labels. I mean, this is even the case with Broken Hope with Floga Records out of Greece, and all of a sudden they're re-releasing the first 4 or 5 records via Metal Blade, and shit's just like exploding. And it's like, whoa, I had no idea that people gave this much of a shit.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, death metal was always kind of hit or miss for me. But a lot of the Chicago death metal bands kind of have like that, there's like a groove to it. Like it's almost like pre-death and roll,
Totally. I mean, dude, that's why I love Broken Hope so much, man, because you got a song like Gorehog that's like straight up blast beats, and then in the middle, all of a sudden, it's like this fucking grooving slam thing, and it's like, dude, it's got everything in one song. That's like 1 minute and 30 seconds. Sick. I want more of that.
Yeah. And how has this past year or so been for you, just like not being able to tour?
Oh, it's been awful. I mean, we were joking, and I was talking with Stavros about this like on the porch last summer when we were talking about all of it, and it's like, man, remember when we used to go out and do cool things, and now we're just defined by our day jobs? And then it was like, no, fuck that. We're still musicians. It's just we're grounded right now. But it was crazy, man. We had at least Broken Hope had 3 or 4 festivals that canceled. This Doom project I'm in called Canyon of the Skull, we had just dropped a record like 2 months before, and we had a slew of dates to promote it. One with Something Is Waiting up in Madison, and that got dropped like the week that the lockdown happened. So it sucked, and everything like dropped down with it. I don't think I jammed with anybody for probably 6 months. It was just such a bummer. Everybody was scared. Everybody didn't know what to do. I was still going out and working with the public every day, so I was wondering if I was going to like, go visit my parents for the weekend and fucking kill them. So it was weird. I mean, in a flash, everything was done. Everything was canceled, and it was terrifying. It was like, oh, where did my life purpose just go?
Yeah, I've existed in like a 3 square mile radius in the DC area for the past year because like I haven't even bothered trying to go to Kentucky to visit any family for the same reasons that you just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. It was terrifying. And the only time I was able to get out of the city, it was like, well, we've got some friends in like Bumblefuck, Indiana that live on like, 10 acres in the middle of the woods, and that's safe enough, right? And it was like, yeah, let's go. Just like at least get out of the city and breathe some fresh air and not have to have a mask on and worry about, somebody coughing on you.
I was talking to Eddie on here a few weeks ago, and we were joking around about how when everything kind of picks back up again, everyone's just gonna have to give all of the bands a little bit of time to get back in the groove because it's just been so long since they've really been able to play in front of people.
Oh yeah. I am not looking forward. Well, I am looking forward to those first shows back. I mean, it's going to be fucking sweet, but totally true. I mean, in the case of Broken Hope, Jeremy and I started jamming closer to middle to late last year, and we kind of demoed some new songs and at least played through some oldies to get the rust off. But even with the case of like Atlas Moth, like, man, we haven't, as a band in a room, I think I was talking with the guys the other day, it's probably been about 16 months. Just fucking wild. I haven't seen, the five of us have not been in a room together since pre-COVID at this point. So he's totally on the nail with that. It's like, I haven't seen those guys. I haven't jammed with those guys. If we were to get in a room and be like, all right, let's do some actual human blood, it'd be like, sick. How does that go again? Like, damn. So that's totally, that rings so true. And especially for us, like bringing back Gabe, for example, who are in multiple bands, like, I know Gabe's been jamming by himself. I know I've been jamming by myself, but whether he's been doing it with Eddie or whether he's been doing it with Lavisher, like, who knows, everything's kind of just so on hold, and everybody became so focused on just surviving in their daily life that, this quote unquote hobby, if you want to call it, had to go by the wayside. Because it's not like any of us make a living off of this shit.
Yeah, and I know that Atlas Moth was planning some kind of EP that I don't know how much of the details on that we can actually get into. And I was kind of waiting for more of that to be able to be talked about so I could have Stavros on here.
Yeah.
Like it's just like how does all that stuff even like work during all of this,
Dude, exactly. I mean, and with the EP, or at least the material that Steve and I started working on last year, it was his idea. He sketched it out. We learned it independently, and then we kind of just went for it on a day in the studio and laid down a basic drum and a basic rhythm track with the idea of at least Andrew knows how to do studio shit from home. Dave's got his Axe effects. He can do studio shit from home. A bass can be DI'd. So it was like, yo, let's get this general idea. And then through COVID, since everything's basically digital these days anyway, we can try to build an EP off of that. And it's just like everything else, man, life just got in the way and we're still kind of in a holding pattern with it. And there's some cool concepts, I'll let him drop what he wants to do, especially if he's going to be coming up next. I'll definitely let him have that bit. But that's totally how it was. It was very still separate. It wasn't more than two of us in a room at a time trying to figure shit out, which is still equally weird.
Yeah. And I had initially met you through that band, and it was like the last time that you guys played DC when you were touring with Royal Thunder, and you had, I guess, just joined the band not too long before that.
Yeah.
And I remember Stavros texting me after I stopped by the merch table, because he was like saying that you were excited that someone had just come and like dropped $200 at the merch table. And he was just like, yeah, that's Roger.
Like, yeah. No, I was like, who's that? Oh, it's a Chicago homie. Sick shit. That makes sense. Which is righteous, I mean, that's the best part of touring, is getting to see your homies, especially if you moved away. So shit. I think we even had our coffee at that point too, which is righteous. I hope you drank the shit out of that.
Yeah, I bought like 3 bags of that. So I've got it came with a cassette copy of Coma Noir.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 cassette versions of that.
Sick. Oh, dude, yeah. That was dope. I mean, so Dark Matter has a label, and it's kind of become a media conglomerate called Presspot Records. So when I told Dark Matter about the record coming out, I was like, yo, it'd be sick if we could do coffee. And they'd be like, fuck yeah, of course, dude. Like, it's your project. We love you. And then I was like, what about putting out a cassette with it? And it was dope. I mean, we hit a prosthetic, and it was like, hey, can we just license this? And they were like, yeah, we don't care. Do whatever. It's a promo thing. So getting fucking cassettes printed out and having them show up in a box, and it was white with the logos on it and everything. Like, it was just cool because it brings you back to being a kid. And it's like, I just want to pop this in a Walkman. But I was so stoked on that. I was like, sick. I like collectible things.
Yeah, and that Como Noir blend was one of my favorites because it was just like a really solid diner coffee.
Mm-hmm. Totally. You know, it's like the whole theme of the album is kind of like this, murder mystery film noir going back to the 20s with the detective sitting on his desk, smoking a cigar. So it's like a nice cup of full body black coffee to go with it. Perfect.
Yeah, and how does the partnerships that you all do with different artists work? Because I know that you all had the 9 Inch Nails one, and like part of the proceeds from that went to charity. There was the one with like Mastodon for Hope for the Day. There was the one with the Refused, and like so on.
Yeah, that's usually the artists. I mean, and what's interesting about all those blends that you mentioned, with the exception of 9 Inch Nails, all that's going through the drummers. So for the Refused coffee, Refused picked the charity, their drummer picked the coffees. For every Mastodon coffee we've done, Mastodon picked the charity, but Bron was always our main connection for that. For Municipal Waste, it's always been Dave. Dave is definitely the coffee hound. So it's really hilarious that this kinship with drummers and caffeine is definitely a thing. I mean, even if you go back to like Gene Hoglan and Dark Angel in the 80s, I mean, dude was called the LA Caffeine Machine for a reason. He was fast as fuck.
Yeah, y'all got
I just love that that's a running theme.
Yeah, there's like the 2 or 3 Charlie Benanti blends too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, which we still have going. And that was all him, It was like, we're going to call it Schism. We're going to call it this. Oh, I really like Fernet. You want to condition that coffee in Fernet? And fuck yeah, we will. So yeah, it's always the drummer, man. I love it.
Yeah, I ran into him one year. I guess it was like 2017, maybe, at a New York Comic-Con. Like, he was just kind of like going through one of the t-shirt booths, and I walked up to him and I was like, yo, Charlie, what's up? And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, shit, don't blow up don't blow up my fucking spot here, dude.
Yeah, man, I'm looking for shit like the rest of y'all right now.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm not trying to bug you or anything. I just wanted to say hi because I saw you.
Dude, it's righteous. Him and Jeremy from Broken Hope have become really decent friends in the past couple of years, and literally all they shit to shoot about fucking horror movies all the time, dude. It's a great kinship to have. It's just, we're all nerds, and that's what it is. If you're a metalhead, you're probably a nerd for good reason, because it's all about everything, man. It's a lifestyle, so you immerse yourself in it. You need to know everything about it.
Yeah, and speaking of the horror movie thing, like, it's pretty much how I always kind of explain death metal to people, is that it's basically just really heavy and has a lot of horror themes. And the thing that like differentiates that from something like black metal is that black metal has all that like Tolkien and like Satanism and stuff and all that.
Oh, dude, totally. I mean, and there's a great, I remember, I don't know if it was the History of Cannibal Corpse or something, they were talking about when they were doing Eaten Back to Life, and they were like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? And it's like, dude, it's just us getting a case of beer and watching Evil Dead 2 on a VHS tape and being like, that's fucking gross and hilarious. Let's write a song about that. I feel like, I mean, definitely in the case of Broken Hope, that's definitely it. I mean, Jeremy is one of the biggest horror freaks I've ever met in my life. And I thought I had a decent base of knowledge, when you're coming up and it's like, dude, you got to watch Evil Dead, dude, you watch Night of the Living Dead, you got to go find Dead Alive and watch the lawnmower scene at the end. And then being exposed properly to that whole world, it's like, oh, this is gnarly. Also, this all makes sense now.
And it's crazy that just of those movies that you mentioned, those directors went on to do like these big like mainstream blockbuster movies. To
inadvertently tie it right back to Lord of the Rings. Yeah, totally. I was like, yo, Peter Jackson is a brilliant artist, and it's like, yeah, you ever seen Bad Taste?
Yeah, what's it been like at Dark Matter for the last year?
It's been crazy, man. So I was still running the mothership location when everything happened, and it literally just became like a slower and slower clamp down before the city finally clamped down on all of it. So like leading up to it, it's like, okay, pull the condiment bar. We don't want people commingling and touching things that other people are touching. Then we started wearing masks before there was even a mandate. And then when it all shut down, we immediately kind of pivoted, and it's like, cool, everything's to go. We're going to do one person in and out at a time. And then we adapted by having to do like an online ordering service where people could order ahead. So at least they could come in and get their shit and get out instead of waiting. Because like when you're doing one in and one out, like the queues were long. So it was kind of a way to try to relieve that while still conducting traffic at the same time. So it was just pivoting. It was a lot of adaptability. It was a lot of thinking on our feet. It was a lot of patience. It was a lot of guidance. So you really learn a lot in a very short period of time, just on how to manage people, how to deal with people, how to direct people, how to keep them safe, how to keep you safe. And I was actually really stoked at the foresight from the upper heads, because it just seemed like in terms of our safety, they really acted quickly. And like we had glass guards before that was mandated by the rest of the city to try to keep people from talking at us and whatnot. So it was an experience. Basically, all of our shops turned into like some bodega style. You roll in and there's a giant glass thing and thank you, sir. Here's a cup of coffee. Have a good one. Now, please get out. There's survival. And like in terms of that, combine that with like back of house web sales through our online store, and just taking like kind of like how beer does when they take like vertical flights of different releases every year. We would take like 4 years worth of packaging from Devil's Lettuce and just be like, check it out, get all 5 of them right now as like a collector's thing. And that really helped too. So kind of digging into the back catalog, a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of inventiveness. And we was just like all in or all end, dude. Like we pull out all the stops or we're not going to be here 6 months from now. So now that's been over a year, it's really dope to see that adaptability really pay off, and the fact that we still all have jobs.
Yeah, I remember grabbing last year a few of those blends that were just kind of like brought out for all of that. I guess you all kind of just had in the back there, either from just like the packaging, or you were able to throw those same blends together.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was definitely a combination of both. And for those that we couldn't recreate the actual blend, we at least tried to make it as similar as possible with whatever we had. Because obviously international trade was being halted too. And it's not like we could still go down to a coffee farm and check out what was going on, because nobody had any idea what was going on. So it was cool. Yeah, it was either replicate the brands or at least get the coffees out. And there was some cool bag art that I hadn't seen in years that all of a sudden showed up. And I was like, oh, that's a throwback. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I've always kind of dug about Dark Matter is just the overall like kind of positive vibes that company puts out there, because there's just like this really sort of intentional effort to be involved in the community and to build this whole community around all of that. And so it always kind of struck me throughout the last year too, just the messages that they put out through the beginning of the pandemic, and then through all of the unrest last summer during the Black Lives Matter protests and all of that. That just like really kind of makes me like that company that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a good chance to also just be like, well, you practice in what you preach. And the fact that, we've been working so closely with some of these communities already, and then really just being like, okay, so how really can we step it up now and work closely? We've done a lot of work with My Block, My Hood, My City. We've done a lot of work with the Gage Park Latinx Council, and just like kind of even solidifying those ties even more, because like community is everything. Like that's your support system. Like without a community, you're nothing. So really just being there and being supportive and listening and asking how we can help, and how we can do that through art and coffee and collaboration, even in a time where like people getting together is literally forbidden, was definitely the big challenge. And I was glad that we were still able to kind of keep our ethos and work through that. It's definitely something I'm super proud to be a part of. It really is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and how do all the fair trade relationships that you all have work?
I mean, what's really, and these were all relationships that were definitely forged before I started with the company, but what we really did was pivot to, and what's weird is that 2020 was the 10th anniversary of us working with the Pacas family down in El Salvador, 10 years that we had been sourcing coffee for them. So these relationships and how they developed, we literally worked directly with the farms, and especially in El Salvador and Guatemala. It's, we were going down there 3 to 4 times a season. We looked at coffee, we talked with them about coffee, we tasted coffee, we went to the farms, and then we purchased directly through them instead of going through, a broker or some sort of trade organization or anything like that. So when the pandemic happened, it became even more so important that we really strengthen those bonds, because once again, that sense of community, it's like, where the money is going. And especially in Guatemala with our relationship with Finca San Geronimo, they were literally like, you guys have no idea how much you've impacted not only our family, but the workers here and this entire community from purchasing coffee from us for all these years. So it was, it really highlighted even more so the importance of that during the pandemic, and the fact that we were able to source directly and work directly with them. And that money was going directly to them and definitely benefiting the people that worked for it, which was really cool. I mean, the strength of relationships is impressive. Dude, I love that old school Miami mug. I miss those so much. That just that robin egg blue with the pink on there. Oh, I miss that so much.
Yeah. Do you know if you all are gonna do any more like diner style coffee mugs like this?
We're getting around to it. We've got some things pushing around in the design department, and I'm really stoked at what the next future is going to bring in terms of design and merch and everything. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, no, you all have a pretty strong merch game overall. Like with the coffee packaging, I really like the local artists that you all are able to line up for that too.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And that really comes from just sourcing, and dude, like the amount of shit that just comes from Instagram, and literally some of the guys in the office just being like, dude, I like this artist. I like this artist. Oh, they're Chicago based. Oh, they're just down the street in Pilsen. Like, yo, hit them up. Like, let's do a thing. Let's have them paint on the wall in the roastery, or let's have them design a bag, or, even with somebody kind of slightly bigger that's not necessarily a part of the community, like Raul, who did all of our portfolio blends that got redesigned last year with this crazy 70s psychedelic, like, I don't want to whitewash it by saying it looks like a fucking Boston concert tee, but in terms of that aesthetic with those colors and that psychedelia, it's just like so eye-popping and so dope. It's like I don't see anybody else, and not even coffee specific, that's doing that type of aesthetic right now. And it just so speaks to me. I don't know if it's the Sabbath or what, but
yeah. And I know last time that I was in Chicago, it was that big 10th anniversary street festival that you all had. What all went into kind of organizing that and just kind of like lining everything up so that it ran smoothly?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's slightly out of my wheelhouse in terms of operations on it, but they've always done, Dark Matter's birthday is around the 4th of July. So we always tried to do a block party every year. So for the 10th anniversary, it was like really all out. And what's cool is that it's like, it's the beer homies. It's like, hey, you guys, we collaborate with breweries a lot. So it's like, what beer do you want to pour so we can support you? We have our friends who are in restaurants come and they cook food for people. And then in terms of the artists, it's like, there's such a pool of talent within the back of house, within the front of house baristas. Like 3/4 of the bands that played that day were all people who were of Dark Matter staff. And that's even cooler. So it's literally just internal sourcing at that point. It's like, who are our friends? Who are our staff? Who are our collaborators? And it's like, fuck, just bring them all together. What are we doing? We're throwing a party on Saturday. Just bring them all in. And we try to do something like that every year. So it was really sad last year when that totally didn't happen. And I was like, man, that's like the one time everybody just gets together and it's like, fuck yeah, this community is awesome. The city is awesome. It's full of creative, positive, dope ass energy. Now let's drink some beers about it.
Yeah, and I love the name of the one higher ups band, Wild Jesus and the Devil's Lettuce.
Oh God, yeah. Which naturally I've been drumming for them for about 6 years now. So there you go. Which is a hoot, man. You just get to lay back and just go with it. It's very much like that kind of I don't want to put it in like in terms of like I guess the best comparison would be something like Pigface, where it's like Pigface always exists because Pigface itself is the entity of those of the comprise of it of a certain period of time. So that's kind of like the idea behind Wild Jesus. It always is, and it doesn't matter who's in it because it still is, because it's the essence overall. And for that 10th anniversary, I mean, was that when there was like 2 drummers on stage and there was like 10 people playing?
Yeah, and Bruce came up and did the Tina Turner version of Whole Lot of Love.
Oh, dude, it's so sick. And then we ended it with a cover of She's So Heavy, which was so dope. Oh, that was one of my funnest shows I've ever played with them. That ruled so hard. And I think all the edibles probably wiped a good chunk of that memory away from it. But yeah, damn, that was a fun time.
Speaking of Bruce, he's one of those other dudes who's just like in a half a dozen projects up there. He just like pops up on everything. And I don't know if it's because he's so versatile with his like sax ability or like I've seen him replace the singer in Dillinger Escape Plan at the Barbecue before.
Fuck, that's sick, and that sounds awesome. But I think it's just a matter of, kind of like the dark matter community, and then, like taking it a little bit smaller to just like the music community at large. And the fact that somebody like Bruce that not only has that crossover appeal within the metal community, but then within the greater music community at large, like I'm pretty sure he's probably been on every Moth record to date, because on Coma Noir, he does the sax at the end of Chloroform. Jamming with Canyon of the Skull, he's joined us on stage for Dark Lord Day at least twice now, just since it's like doom metal with no vocals. It's like, yeah, dude, just come fucking make noise over this shit. And then jamming with Wild Jesus, whether it's singing or whether it's with a saxophone. We did Wild Jesus did a live stream a couple months back, and we called it Dark Matter TV, so DMTV, naturally. And we just filmed this like 10-minute improvisational thing, and we had him jumping on saxophone, and it was so dope. It was a hoot. Everybody was just vibing off of each other. It was the first time a lot of us have been in the room making music together since the pandemic, and having him be a part of that was beyond fucking fun. It was just, everybody was vibing, and it's like, shit, I don't remember anything I just played, but it felt fucking spiritual. I feel alive again.
Yeah, and are you ever surprised at like how big, I guess, in that area dark matter has kind of become? Because you all had locations in the United Center too, right?
Yeah, we did have and I don't even know what the future of that is anymore, but yeah, we had the Mad West Cafe, and literally everybody who took a picture of that Michael Jordan statue for about 2 years had that little dark matter logo sitting in the back corner of the to-go window. So it's cool, man. I mean, it's the outreach is crazy, and while we're being the district manager for one of the district managers for dark matter now, we're mainly in charge of hiring, and that's literally like the amount of people, not only from within Chicago that are impressed at the expansion, but even people from other cities that have just heard from us, and it's like, hey, I'm moving here, and you guys were like what I thought of in terms of a gig in order to get to the city. It's pretty cool. It's slowly going national, or it already is national, should I say. I mean, we have homies out in New York that are stoked on us. We got friends down in Texas now. It was one of our first COVID road trips once people started getting vaccinated, was go down to Austin, go down to San Antonio, hang out with the Black Angels at like the 13th floor bar and jam on some Rocky Erickson and shit like that. So it's slowly, it's getting into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, and how does everything work with your position whenever you have to go out on tour?
I mean, mercifully, what's always been awesome is that they're incredibly supportive of anybody who is in the arts, and realizing that you do have passions outside of work that you absolutely need to pursue and support, because it's just part of mentally being a very healthy individual. But also just kind of padding, the way when I first started running Mothership, it was a co-manager situation because of that. So when I left, I still had somebody else who could help me run the shop. And now in terms of the district manager role, there's 2 of us. So at any given point, if somebody's not in, there's always somebody else to back them up. So it's always been really cool. They've always been supremely supportive. And that's just, I think, a very fortunate part of being with a company who is very supportive of the arts and creative endeavors. So it's just part of the game. I would be very confused if they were like, you really can't do this anymore. And I'd be like, but what? It would be out of line for them. They are so incredibly supportive of anything that anybody is doing creatively or passionately. It's really righteous.
Yeah, and it's speaking of touring, it's interesting kind of seeing now what these different tour schedules are looking like, with a lot of bands going out on the road again.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of major markets that they can't really hit yet because of the restrictions. But at the same time, it means that there are people in these other markets that don't usually get hit who are finally getting these big shows. What do you think that whole thing is going to look like for the next like couple of years? Do you think that the big markets will open up soon, or do you think it'll be a little bit further down the road?
I think it'll be soon. I mean, considering that my ass was sitting in the United Center this past Friday watching a Bulls game, which is cool. There was barely fucking anybody in there, but just the fact that that's slowly becoming a reality in this city again, I think is really hopeful. I think it's really dope. I'm sure when you talk to Stavros, he'll reiterate his theory of how everybody's kind of been knocked down a peg or two. So bands that were playing theaters are going to be playing clubs. Bands that were playing clubs are going to be playing fucking bars, and how everybody kind of goes down a peg because all these bigger bands are going to suck up all of these tour routes. Like, it's always been the theory of, once touring starts again, what is Slipknot going to do? They're not going to be filling like Allstate Arena. Are they going to like come through Reggie's? And if they do, I'm fucking there because that sounds awesome. But yeah, and I think it just comes to cap limits and what's allowed. And obviously that's going to vary from state and from city, which is kind of the clusterfuck of this whole thing, was just being like, everybody do something different. But just based upon how Chicago is slowly opening, I'm hopeful that everything will slightly see some sense of normalcy again. I think by the time mid next year rolls around, it's going to look pretty much like it did pre-COVID, or at least I'm hoping anyway. Just by the amount of shows I've seen, the amount of places I've seen, the amount of announcements. Broken Hope is supposed to play this festival down in Monterrey, Mexico at the end of October. And so far that all seems amazing. Like Cradle of Filth is the headliner. So, I mean, they've got a lot riding on this shit if they have to cancel it all of a sudden. It's not like some death metal festival and we're like the high brought in talent. But I'm just, the fact that you're still seeing Psycho talking about shit. I mean, I'm hopeful. So I guess it's kind of like, we'll see how fall goes and then take it from there.
Yeah. Speaking of Cradle of Filth, the one time that I got to see them was in Chicago at the House of Rules, which, for anyone who isn't aware, that's the House of Blues. But
oh, it's so goddamn true.
Yeah. The funny thing about their set though was that for whatever reason, the like back projector thing didn't work, so they were just playing to like this bright like blue white screen the entire show.
That's hilarious. God, it's like, I mean, can somebody just put like a red spotlight on it or something? Just something that's not like bright baby blue. It doesn't really go along with going and here's gilded cunt. And it's like, no, that doesn't work at all.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that they could have just like had someone roll the projector up and just played to whatever like curtain is behind it.
Oh God, no, exactly. That's some Spinal Tap shit, man. I remember we played. It was the first tour I did with Broken Hope, and we were in Quebec City, and we were loading up. We start doing a sound check, and we hear everybody laughing, and it's like, yo, what the fuck's going on? And you look behind you, and the goddamn banner's upside down. And it's like, all right, hello, Cleveland. I'm gonna go get some poutine now.
Yeah, like the giant banners are always cool at the festivals to see, but occasionally you kind of also see where you have mishaps with them, where they either like are kind of half hanging off or they fall down just because shit happens.
Exactly. One of the clamps comes undone. We played this. It was in the middle of nowhere, Germany. And it was so fucking windy, and we played so early. Like the joke on stage was, yo, the fucking trees are moving more than all y'all. What's going on here? But our scrims just kept flying over. They're giant parasails at that point. And it's like, oh God, can we get done with this and go back to sleep? Because I didn't go to bed until 6 a.m. and bus call was 7. So I feel that Spinal Tap is real. It's a fucking documentary.
Yeah. I mean, the Stonehenge thing is like an actual Black Sabbath thing, except it was supposedly reversed. Like it was
like too big or something, right?
Yeah, they were too big for the venues that Sabbath were playing.
It's hilarious. I mean, slightly off topic and slightly hippie-ish, but man, I just got done watching like this Grateful Dead documentary, and there's a whole series on the Wall of Sound where they just built this enormous ass sound rig that had like 200 speakers in it, and you just see they're interviewing these roadies, and they're just like, oh God, fuck all that. Every goddamn day putting that thing up and tearing it down. And I was like, yep, it hurts. It's real. Such is the price of rock and roll.
I speaking of Wall of Sound, I got to see Motorhead like one time before Lemmy died, and it was also in Chicago in 2011, and that show for the week after that, I couldn't hear right out of like my left ear. I was like right up in front of the stage, right near like the monitors on that side of the stage.
Yeah.
And their whole set was just like, I mean, they had the reputation as being the loudest band in the world. Like I didn't really understand what exactly that construed until I saw them live, and it literally was like a wall of sound. Like unless you really knew Motorhead, you almost couldn't tell what songs they were playing at any given time.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Hey, dude, that's as brutal as didn't Manowar used to have that title for a minute, and then when they played Concord a couple of years ago, the fucking ceiling started crumbling, so they had to evacuate the venue. I was like, all right. That's the most metal thing I've heard since the COD piece came around. Dude, I'm jealous, man. I never had to play. Motorhead was one of those learning experiences for me, along with Typo Negative, where you just don't fucking put off seeing shit anymore because you take it for granted. It's like, you want to go see Motorhead? And I was like, I'll catch him next time. And then fuck, Lemmy's dead. So that's what I learned. So I've heard AC/DC's coming to Wrigley sometime in the next year, and you better believe I'm going to fucking be there before somebody else from that band croaks.
Is Brian Johnson singing for them again, or is it still Axl Rose?
It's Brian. Man, if you haven't checked out that latest record, like, I'm a sucker for AC/DC. They sound fucking good. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It sounds like every other fucking AC/DC record ever, but it's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's like that's the running joke with them, is that they've made Back in Black like a dozen times after that. But I mean, that's Slayer
like
did the same thing.
Done Ace of Space a million times. Ace of Space, Ace of Ace. Ah, Jesus. Drink more beer to that.
It's like Slayer has that reputation of being the AC/DC of thrash, because they pretty much stuck with the same formula the whole time they existed, except for like maybe on Diabolus and God Hates Us All. But those were like borderline new metal.
No, totally, especially Diabolus. And I feel like every thrash band, like even fucking Creator was doing that shit. Testament was doing that shit. But, a lot of those records wound up being pretty dope. I need to go back and revisit Diabolus. I haven't listened to that in a long time. And I'm sure being more mature and not being some shit-eating 17-year-old that calls everybody who doesn't have a pair of Reeboks a poser, I will probably enjoy it a lot more now with some, age and experience. That's the argument we'll always get into and say. And talking with Stavros, which two Metallica records are his favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Load album too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is just, I finally realized, was just like, oh, so they went out and toured on the Black Album, and they had Caius and COC open for them. So of course they tried to be a blues band after that. Makes total fucking sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you think about James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich's influences, they kind of always wanted to be Motorhead. So totally. Load is just Metallica being Motorhead.
Exactly. It's like, well, what do you do? Well, you just blues it up a little bit, and then you give it a groove instead of pop, 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 and it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think also that as much as I love And Justice for All, that album's almost too technical for them to have ever been able to keep doing that for as long as they've just done Metallica. Like, I don't think that they would have still been playing that kind of music today anyways. They would have probably retired by now.
No, exactly. I mean, shit, I always tell people that if Injustice had the fucking production of Master of Puppets, in terms of some of the riffs on there, that would probably stand up as one of my favorite Metallica records. Like, holy shit. And I still hold the Black Album in high regard. We did that once when Atlas Moth was supporting Paradise Lost, and Steve would always be the night shift driver, and I would always sit up front with him after the show. And one night we were going to the hotel and we had a couple hours. So he was just like, let's put on the fucking Black Album. And like, we get through Enter Sandman and we just look at each other and it's like, man, that's how you start a fucking record. And then just go straight into Sad But True, which is like the heaviest thing they've ever written, next to like the thing that should not be. And it's like, whoa. Yeah, you can't fuck with that album.
Yeah, all of their albums start with a pretty good sort of arena anthem, from like Black Album on, except for like Saint Anger is kind of weird at the beginning because it's got that whole like frantic like tick 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 tock thing. But
oh god,
Saint Anger in general is just like a weird anomaly in that band's body of work.
It really is. It's like, it's Metallica, but it's in the garage, and it's like, cool, but in hindsight, I don't think anybody asked for that.
Well, like the way that I kind of think of it now is like it's Metallica trying to be Korn.
A little bit, yeah, because it was a really conscious thing to like not do guitar solos and kind of strip everything down and make it sound really raw. Yeah, if you look at that time frame, I will piss a lot of people off now because of my age, but Saint Anger was the first Metallica record I owned, just to blow people's minds there. So, and then everybody's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, but that's what had come out when I was of age where I could go to goddamn Circuit City and get myself an album, So it was weird. And I was like, what the fuck? This doesn't have Enter Sandman on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's dudes in their 40s trying to do teen angst, man.
Yeah, right. Sign me up.
The funny thing about that album too is that the original release for it, and I don't know if it still comes with that DVD, but the original release had that DVD where you could watch them playing it live in their rehearsal space, and that sounded better than the actual album.
Yeah, totally. I remember that. I think I remember getting a rip of that from like the library or something, and I was like, "Oh, it's a special edition. What is this?" And then you see some kind of monster come out and put all of that into context as well, and it's like, "Whoa, what a shit show!"
Yeah, I mean, the one upside to that album is Rob Trujillo bringing the chunky bass riffs.
Dude, so sick. I love it. And he's been fucking fit the band perfectly.
Yeah, he's been with that band now longer than any other bassist.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely longer than Cliff, and definitely and longer than Jason at this point too. Holy shit!
Yeah, but I think he's played on the fewest albums, maybe.
Yeah, right. I can't even name what even comes after Satan. I mean, I remember Death Magnetic. That's about it. Was there anything else around that?
Yeah, there's a Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
Oh shit, that's right.
And then there's SNM2 from like last year.
Fuck. That's right, because I had the good ones. We're so fucked. Totally fucked. And I was like, all right, cool. I get it. I feel it.
You know, it's
Soldier Field on that tour, and it was like a 97.9 sponsored show. So they just played all the radio hits, and I'm sitting here being like, where the fuck is Battery? I was like so bummed out by that set list.
Yeah, dude, I was right down in front of the stage during that show because I came up during that week to hang out with Gobo and to see that show. I dropped like 200
local band.
Yeah, Local H won the local band contest.
You guys were on fucking Warner Brothers. Local band my ass.
And then when I saw that Avenged Sevenfold was in that supporting spot, my immediate thought was, I wonder if there's like a clause in them being on this tour that they can't play any of the songs where they jack the riffs from Metallica songs.
Oh my God, yeah. That whole record. Oh my God. It's like them and Trivium like totally both did that. Where it was like, all right, now this was our big like radio active rock album, and now we're all gonna try to sound like fucking Metallica. And it's like, oof, you got a little bit too close to the sun on that.
Yeah, Avenged had a song on one of the WWE games a few years ago, and I don't remember what the song was called, but the vocal melody for it was ripped straight from Sad But True.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was like off just slightly.
Damn, that's hilarious. I didn't even know that. I'm not the biggest Avenged Sevenfold fan, though I am very stoked. I love Brooks Wackerman because I loved Bad Religion, and he was a badass drummer in that band. So after the fact that he went and joined Avenged Sevenfold made me kind of like curious to go back and see what was going on with that now, because he's a sick drummer.
Yeah, like they're one of those bands where I know that they exist and I know that they're good at what they do, but I don't particularly go out of my way to know anything more than that about them, other than like I've sat through them at an Ozfest and I've sat through them at a Metallica show.
Totally. And it's like, cool, fair enough, that works for me. Don't need any more of that.
Yeah, it's like if I have to listen to it, I'm cool with it, but like there's worse things that I could be subjected to.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only time I purposely missed an opening band was when Maiden was doing Matter of Life and Death, and Bullet for My Valentine was the opening act. And I was like, cool, yeah, I've got no reason to show up early for that. I was like, no offense, guys, but I did that. Maiden, what?
Yeah, I photographed them opening for Slipknot one time, and they I was just like, this is just like standard meat and potato stuff. Like,
exactly,
it exists.
Man, dude, it was like 2019, and Beetle will back me up on this. I'm a bass player in Atlas Moth, dude. Him and I went and saw Slipknot and Gojira out at Toyota Park, and that was hands down one of the best shows I saw all of 2019. That was so fucking good.
Yeah, I photographed that show at the Virginia stop too.
Nice. Yeah, Behemoth was the opener with the giant fucking inverted crosses that spewed fucking smoke everywhere. I loved it.
Yeah, was Lamb of God on that tour too?
No, it was fucking Volbeat.
Yeah,
which was like weird because it goes Behemoth, Volbeat, Gojira, and it was like something isn't quite fit here. But those guys, I mean, Volbeat's fucking righteous, and Homeboys, they're old school death metal dudes. I mean, he's had, when they've played Chicago, they have Dave from Jungle Rot fucking come out and sing a song. They have Barney from Napalm on their records. But it's just like, it wasn't my cup of tea that day because it was like, dude, I just want to go pit.
Yeah. You know, I get all of my tours like mixed up in my head at this point because I've seen so many shows, and it's like Lamb of God I've seen with Slipknot a few times. And I've just seen them. They're one of those bands. It's like I love them, but they're also like Hatebreed, where they were on like every tour throughout
Right.
the 2000s.
No, dude, exactly. Oh, last time I saw Hatebreed, fucking there's Obituary supporting them, and both Madball and Terror as the opening acts. And I was like, fuck yeah. The amount of camo shorts I'm gonna see here tonight is gonna rule. But I'd never seen Hatebreed, and I stood on the fucking side of the stage with a couple of the Obituary guys, and I was like, holy fuck, are they tight? That was such a good show.
Yeah. Josta's side project, Kingdom of Sorrow, the Doom thing that he did, that was dope too. And I got to see them on a tour with Guar back in like 2008, where Kirk Winstein was part of that band with Josta, but he couldn't do that tour because he was touring with Down at the time.
Oh,
So they
gotcha.
had Kenny Hickey from Typo Negative filling in for him.
Oh, that's sick. All
Yeah.
right. Fuck yeah. Dude, that's a lineup right there. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
I mean, I got to see Typo like the year before that on April Fool's Day, which was a mess too, because it's like combining Typo with April Fools is
exactly.
yeah.
Even that was the show. The one time I got this close to seeing Typo Negative, and then that was one of those, hey, I'll catch him next time. It was like fucking Halloween at the Metro. And I can't fucking believe I blew that off. I was like, man, perfect. And that was probably 10 years ago. But holy shit, that's one of my biggest life's regrets, other than not seeing Carlin before he died.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw Typo at that April Fool's show in Cincinnati, they had like these sort of prompt signs. So there was one for applause, there was one that said "you suck," there was one that said "boo," and then they played the chicken dance for like 20 minutes before they came out on stage.
That's that Sixth Sense of Polish humor right there.
Yeah,
that's what that
is. They just played that on a loop, and the lights would light up, and finally people caught on that they needed to do whatever these like prompt lights said. And then as they started doing it, the lights went down, and then everyone started cheering and ignoring the prompt lights. And then the lights would go back up because they ignored them, and the chicken dance music started again.
Oh, that is so good. It's like being at German Fest. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's weird, like or I guess not really weird, but it's interesting to me too that like I've seen half of that band a few times with Danzig too, because Johnny Kelly and Kenny Hickey were his guitarist and drummer for a while.
Oh yeah, I remember many a Riot Fest with him on drums for sure. Because I always get Danzig confused with whenever I would see fucking Jerry doing his own thing. Because who was drumming for Jerry? I don't fucking remember. I don't know what a mess that all is.
I think Robo
yeah,
from
that's right,
Flag.
Black Flag.
Yeah,
Dez was in the band too, and Dez was playing guitar. That's right, I remember that.
Yeah.
Halloween at the Riv, and I remember Jerry showing up an hour late. He's like, sorry, I was trick-or-treating with my kid. I was like, that's cool and all, but you charged me like fucking $30 for these tickets. So could you show up on time?
Dude, speaking of Johnny Kelly too, it's nuts that as talented as he is, for the first 3 Typo albums that he was part of the band, they used a drum machine instead of him.
How the fuck did I not know that? Holy shit.
Yeah, I think Dead Again was the first Typo album that he played live drums on. Because October Rust, World Coming Down, and Life Is Killing Me all have drum machine.
Holy shit. See, now I'm learning something here. That's fucking crazy. Which is why, I mean, I fucking love Dead Again. I mean, it's weird. That's probably an unpopular opinion. That's one of my favorite Typo records. And it pisses me off that obviously it's that like post Roadrunner era, so you can't find it on any streaming services.
Yeah.
But that record ruled. And that had a lot of, you could tell that Peter had been fucking around with Carnivore for a bit, because like even the title track, it's like, hey, he's got a little thrashy again. Okay, there's some speed to this.
Yeah, that one though, I think it turned off a lot of fans because it was also around the time that he was, I guess, sort of getting back into Catholicism after he had gone to Rikers and then was in like a psych ward for a little bit.
Yeah.
So he had that one song that's like right in the middle of it where it's just like this big like anti-abortion thing, and I think that turned off a lot of their typical fan base.
No, exactly. It's like, what the, I'm just trying to listen to some Typo here. What the fuck you preaching at me for?
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's that Prophet of Doom song. He gets all like weird and like revelation-y.
Yeah, it all starts with him. He's like speaking of like a Bible verse at the beginning of that during the dirge before it kicks into the main riff. And it's hilarious because even in the music video, like they cut that whole thing out and it just starts right at that main guitar.
The interviews that he did around that album were great too, because it was just full of all of these things where he's doing his typical like dry humor, and he's like talking about how his sister had him committed to the psych ward because he had psychotic episodes from doing too much cocaine. And there was a quote that was in either Revolver or Decibel where he's just like, blood, while thicker than water, is harder to clean up. And then it's a line in one of the songs on that album too.
Yeah, right. truly the prophet. Oh dear Lord. Perspective is everything. That's for damn sure. I don't know. If I was in a situation, would I get a little Jesus-y? Who the hell knows? Let's not get there.
Yeah, well, like after the Rikers thing, I think in one of those same interviews, someone asked him what he learned from that, and he was like, if you're gonna kick someone's ass, then you shouldn't tell them that you're gonna fucking kill them before you do it, because that implies intent, and they will use that against you.
Where'd you learn how the legal system works?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, well, I think I've held you up for about an hour now, so I'm gonna let you go. But thanks for taking the time to do this today.
Yeah, absolutely, Roger. Thanks for asking. Good chatting.
Yeah, it was great to catch up.
Absolutely, dude. Looking forward to being able to see you in person again soon someday. You coming back to the city anytime soon? I remember this rumor that you were pushing around.
Yeah, supposedly I may be moving back in around September, but at the same time, like I'm so used to having things that I want like dangled in front of me and then pulled away that I'm like tentatively embracing it, but trying not to get too excited about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Believe it when you see it. And if that isn't an analogy that can be applied to everything we just talked about in this past hour, then fucking hey. I'll believe it when I see it. When it all comes back. Shit.
Run you, run you, run you.